everyone, it's Lisa. Welcome back to my channel. If you have not already subscribed, go ahead and click that subscribe button and click that bell icon so that you'll be notified every time I release a new video. Today's video is going to be about the Halloween special kit that the Stamps of Life will be selling. And I have some of the contents, not all of the contents, here in front of me, which I want to go over with you. It does come with the Cozy Basics paper pad. And I do want to point out that this paper pad was for sale on hsn.com and it was sold out. It actually came part of a 2-pack with the Thankful collection. So in case some of you purchased it, it is the same kit. It's the same paper pad. It's Cozy Basics. So it has a bunch of fall colors in it, which I really love for fall cards. I did make some cards out of this already. And it has one of their new colors, which is marigold. So it has marigold, banana, chocolate, ginger snap, artichoke, and kiwi are the colors of this pad. Now, this kit also comes with the new marigold ink, which I do not have because when I was sent this kit, I guess the marigold ink was not in stock yet. So it does have the ink pad, and it's one of the larger ink pads. So it's one of the larger ones that looks like this, but it will have the marigold name on top of it. Okay, so what else is included in this kit? You get a stamp set. And again, this kit is the Halloween kit, so you'll be able to see that everything is coordinated with Halloween, but not necessarily just Halloween. You can actually use some of these products not Halloween too, so you can make fall cards with this paper pad. It doesn't necessarily have to be Halloween related. But here's the stamp set, and you see this is a large stamp. This is all one stamp, and it has some ghosts, it has clouds with some bats and the moon, and then this banner that says Happy Halloween and these spiders hanging from it. This is a separate stamp, which is a smaller spider, and it has the sentiments, have a beautiful Halloween, ghostly greetings, don't be scared, boo to you, and then obviously this large one, which is Happy Halloween. So there are no dies to cut this entire stamped image out. However, it does include these dies, which this ghost die, it will actually cut out this ghost. So that fits over top of it perfectly. So if you wanted to just, stamp this and then cut that one out, you can do that. And it also includes a couple of the bats and a sentiment that says boo. And then it also has the mini star stencil. So this is a stencil. And it also includes these puffy stickers of the candy corn, the bats, and the pumpkins. These are so adorable. And then it also includes, let's see, are these stickers, they're not chipboard because they're not thick. Let me just see what these are. It looks like it's just like almost cardstock that has been die cut. So that's what these are. So these are, you get some stars, some banners, some spiders, there's some ghosts here, some pumpkins, some bats, and you can see the banners up there. Mine actually came out of there. Okay, so that's what you get. You also get, I'm just looking here, you get 2 ribbon. It looks like you get an orange ribbon and possibly a black plaid ribbon. So that's what you will get with this kit. So if you're interested in the contents of this kit, you can go onto the Stamps of Life website and purchase that. And I believe that club members will get a discount on this. So if you are in the Stamp Club, Die Hard Club, or Card Kit Club, you'll be able to get your discount. And once this is gone, it's gone. So they're not going to make any more. So they are limited edition. So if you really like this kit, go ahead and head on over there and purchase it. So for this card, this is going to be like the easiest card ever, probably that I've ever done. All right, so I have a piece of cantaloupe cardstock. This is very similar to the marigold paper. It's a little bit darker, but I don't have marigold, so this is what I'm using. And you can use really any type of Halloween color you wanted. I didn't want to go with tangerine because I thought it was just going to be too bright. But I took it and I die cut it with some dotted rectangle dies. It's the largest dotted rectangle die in the set. And I'm going to take my humongous stamp, and I want you to notice that this stamp, it really covers the whole front of an A2 size card. So you can bang out a whole bunch of these cards So if you were, let's say you had children that you wanted to just make a whole bunch of Halloween cards for, this would be fairly easy because you can put this piece of cardstock in your MISTI, have your stamp on here, and just keep switching out your cardstock pieces to bang out a bunch of quick cards. So I'm going to use my Forever Black ink. This is a very dark black ink and it goes on very dark. And I'm just going to do this a one color stamp, and I'm not even going to color this. Like, you technically, you know, could just have the outline of this stamp, which is what I'm doing here, on your cardstock and be done. Now, if you wanted to color, you can do that as well. Okay, so I press down really well. If I don't get a good impression, I can always come back in and do this again. Okay, and there is my stamp. So if I was doing additional cards, put my piece of cardstock in here and just keep on stamping. So you can see how that fills up the entire width of that cardstock layer. So if you wanted to color it, you just stamp it on some white paper and then you can do some coloring on there. But I think that looks cute just like that. So I'm going to go ahead and ink up these edges, and instead of using the matching ink for the cardstock, like instead of using the cantaloupe, I'm going to come in here with, I'm using the Storm ink. I didn't want to go black because I didn't want it to be too dark, but I did want to have a dark border around this just because it's Halloween. And the Storm is one of the darker gray colors from the Stamps of Life. So I'm going to go ahead and glue this down. All right, and then I'm going to take this ribbon, and I actually think, this was from my stash, but I actually think this might be the same color ribbon that comes in the kit. This is a black plaid, and that's what it looked like in the picture that I was sent. So I'm thinking it's all the same stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and tie a bow up here. Or maybe not a bow. I might just tie it in a knot. And I'm going to put it as high possible as I can, because I really don't want to block those clouds, but they're going to be blocked anyway. But I just figured this needed a little something. I'm going to come in with my Spectrum Sparkle pen, and this is my clear pen. And I'm just coming in here and adding this glitter. That's what it does. It just adds a clear coat of glitter. So I'm just going to add that to this card. Next, I'm going to come in with this Bat Puffy sticker, and I'm just going to add a little bit of hot glue on top of this ribbon. And I'm going to pop this little bat right on top of there. Okay, and look how easy that was. Super, super duper easy for a quick card. And you can pop out a whole bunch of these. Now, if you're writing on the inside, you can use a white gel pen, or you can just put another piece of cantaloupe cardstock on the inside to finish this off so you can write a message. So that completes this first card. For this card, I took a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock and I cut it down with a stitched rectangle die. And I'm going to ink it up with my VersaFine ink because I'm going to be doing some embossing. Next, we're going to put some embossing powder over top of this, and we're going to heat set that. Now, I did use clear embossing powder, so there's no color to that embossing powder. So I am just going to be using a water brush and some watercolor markers. I'm using the Zig Clean Color Real Brush, pens, and you can use any watercolors that you have. I'm going to start out by putting some water on my cardstock. So I'm just adding some water all around in the background. I'm not adding it over the stamped images at this time. Next, I'm going to take my peacock blue. I'm going to put some of the peacock blue on my mat, and then I'm going to pick it up with my water brush, and I'm going to come in here and add that color around the edges. Next, I'm gonna come in with my deep violet, and I'm gonna put some of that down and pick that up, and then I'm gonna come in and just kind of blend that out with the blue. Next, I'm going to come in with my purple. Okay, so I am just gonna kind of go over these edges and just make this a little bit darker with this blue color. All right, so I'm just gonna wipe up these darker colors. And I'm also going to just squeeze my water brush to kind of get rid of some of that darker color off of my tip. And then I'm gonna wipe that up. And now I'm ready to go with my other colors. So for the Happy Halloween, I'm gonna go with the orange. So I'm gonna come in here and put some orange down. And then I'm going to, spread that out. I'm going over the lines, look at me. Now, if that happens, I'm gonna clean off my brush. And I'm just gonna kind of go in here and just kind of wipe that up. Just go over it with some regular water and you should be able to blend it out so that it's not as noticeable. Okay, so here I'm just going to try and clean up some of this orange that's on the side. Okay, now I have a little bit of purple in this spider, so I'm going to bring in some water just to kind of get rid of some of that. And this spider we're going to color green. So for the ghosts, I'm just going to put a little bit of cool gray on the edges of them, but I am going to clean off my brush and I'm going to throw a little bit of water down. All right, I'm gonna come in with black and I'm going to fill the eyes. And I'm just gonna color in the eyes. I'm not going to add any water. With the bats, I'm using the dark gray. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of color on the sides and just bring in my water brush and blend that out. Look at that, my hand got in this, got in the spider and got green on the outside of it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna put some purple down. And I'm just gonna come in here and just add some purple around here. So we'll come in with some of the midnight and just make this a little bit darker around here. And then blend that out in the purple. All right, so I'm gonna come in, let me clean my brush. I'm gonna come in and just put a little bit of water on these clouds. We're gonna come in with some of the darker gray. And if you feel like you went a little too dark, you can just come in with regular water and just soften that color up. I'm gonna wet my moon and just come in with some of the light gray around the sides. All right, and then I'm gonna come in with my black, and I'm going to color in these little dots here. And I'm also gonna color in this little piece here. All right, so there's my watercolored image. I really like how it turned out. And now I can just put that on a card front. So I have an A2 size card base in the black, and I'm just gonna add some glue to the back of my image and add that to the card base. And then I just added the ribbon, tied a knot. So for the inside, I have a 4x5 piece of grape cardstock, and I just put in there, have a Beautiful Halloween, and we can adhere that to the middle or the inside of the card. And now you have something that you can write your message on. And that completes this card. So that's how you can use that large stamp with some watercolors. Super easy. For my next card, I am going to be taking a piece of the black cardstock, which I cut down to 4 1/8 by 5 3/8, and I'm just taping it down to my glass mat. And then I'm gonna have my stencil on the top. I'm gonna use my pixie spray to spray the back of this. And this is just going to keep this down on my cardstock. It's not gonna stick to it, but it will keep it down. I don't have to add tape to hold that down. Now I'm gonna use some light and fluffy modeling paste. I'm just going to take a spatula and put some of this on my glass mat. And I'm gonna take my banana ink refill, and I'm just going to put a couple drops of that in the modeling paste. And I'm gonna mix that up, and notice that it turns that modeling paste that color of the ink. So now it's yellow. And you can make this any color you want, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna apply this to my stencil, and it's gonna add some texture, and it's gonna dry with some texture on there. And then I'm gonna come in with, I have this stencil pal, and I'll link all of these products in my blog in case you're interested, but notice that I'm just gonna scrape that up, and I'm probably gonna need more, I don't know. And I'm just going to rub that over my stencil. Hopefully I won't need any more. Hopefully this will be enough. And it was enough, thank goodness. I don't have to create any more. But notice that I've filled in all of the little holes of my stencil. And this is nice because it actually covers the entire size of this panel for my A2 size card. So I don't have to use this and try and get it all over there. This is perfect because I can just come down and scrape it, and then all the excess comes right off. So I can just clean that up. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and just close this up. And then all of this, I'm gonna clean up off camera, but I just wanna show you what this looks like when it's up. But isn't that pretty? And then it will dry, depending on how thick you put it. Like if you didn't scrape all of it off, you can actually have some more stars with some higher texture if you wanted to, you know, put more of that paste on there and not scrape too much of it off. You can, but I scraped pretty much off. So it is a little bit flat, but there's still a little tiny bit of dimension there. And I think that makes for a really nice background. All right, so to decorate this layer, I die cut a circle. So this is a stitched circle, or not stitched circle, it's just a regular circle. But if you wanted to use a stitched circle, you can. This is the banana cardstock. That's gonna be my moon. I also took the ghost die and die cut a white ghost, but I'm going to just throw some ink around his edges just to give him a little bit of dimension. And this is the cloud ink from the Stamps of Life. So it's just a light gray ink, and he's gonna go there. I also die cut the same ghost dye again to get me the little pieces that go for his eyes and nose, and that's out of the black cardstock, which I'll go ahead and put those in as well. I'm going to be using this sentiment from the cardstock sentiments from the die cuts, and I'm going to be putting that towards the bottom, and I'm going to bring in some ribbon from my stash and just put some ribbon right underneath that. So right now I'm just placing everything where I want it to go, and I'm going to go ahead and place this ribbon. So I'm going to turn this over, and I don't need to use this much, so I'm going to lessen that a little bit. So I want to make sure that this is straight, and it's not. So let's straighten it up. And now I just want to make sure it's not going to be too low, which I think that should be okay. So let me go ahead and tape this in the back. Now before I put that down, I am just going to throw a little bit of glue underneath this ribbon, just in the middle, because that's where the large sentiment's going to be. And if the glue shows through, you won't be able to see it, since the sentiment will be covering it. Which I'm thinking I probably should have popped this up on some foam. I think I'm going to do that because for some reason it's not sticking as well as I'd like. So there's the sentiment, and let's go ahead and place the moon. So we'll go ahead and adhere that. And then I'm going to add this entire layer to an A2 size card base in the banana. And that completes this card. You can see the dimension on there. I think that turned out super cute. For this next card, I have a piece of Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm using this Grid 2 die set, which comes with these 2 dies. So I took the rectangular die from that set and I die cut the Bristol Smooth cardstock, and I'm just going to tape this down to my glass mat because I'm going to be doing some ink blending on here. I also took a circle die and I die cut a circle out of some masking paper, and this I had previously used. I'm hoping there's still some sticky on it. I'm going to go ahead and spray this with my Pixie spray, and let's hope that this still has some sticky to it. But the masking paper is good when you want to mask off an area and then you want to ink blend around it. So I've already done this with my masking paper. I don't know if that's quite in the middle. Let me reposition this. And I'm putting my circle here in the middle of this card layer. You can do this with a sticky note if you had a sticky note and just tape it down. It probably would do the same thing, but you want to make sure that your masking paper, your sticky note adheres fully so that you don't get ink underneath it, because this is going to represent my moon and it's going to be the background for my window that I'm going to be creating. So now I'm going to take some inks. I'm going to be using the Midnight, the Razzleberry, and the Grape ink from the Stamps of Life. So I'm going to start with my Razzleberry, and I'm just going to ink up around the edge of the moon with the Razzleberry. So next I'm just going to take some white acrylic paint. Just going to put a little bit of paint there on my mat. And I'm going to spray this with some water. And then just kind of mix that up. And the reason I'm mixing this with water is that way it's not as thick, and it will allow me to just take this and flick some spots with this paintbrush onto this background. Next, I'm going to come in with my heat tool and just dry that. And then when I remove the mask, you can see that pretty effect that it gives. So you can see that the raspberry ink that's around the edge, it's just like a glow of the moon. I think that's so pretty. Next, I'm going to attach this panel to an A2 size card base in the licorice cardstock. And I die cut a frame out of the grid die, so that's also in the licorice cardstock. So that's going to go over like it's the window. But first I'm going to use some of these cardstock pieces, and I'm just going to place some of them where I want them to go. And I want them to, like, I want the ghost to look like he's outside, so he's going to go behind that grid. And I'm also going to incorporate some of the spider webs, but those I can worry about after I place the grid. So right now I just want to worry about placing this ghost so that he's exactly where I want him to be when I glue my grid down. So of course we have to add a little spider, so I took one of the small spiders from the cardstock pieces, put some double-sided adhesive foam, and I'm just going to put him down there in the corner. Next, I die cut the Boo sentiment, and I put double-sided adhesive on the back of that cardstock before running it through my die cut machine. And I'm going to go ahead and place the letters. These letters do come out individually, so they are individual letters. They're not connected. And then I took the bat die. There's a small die with some bats, and I went ahead and die cut that also out of the licorice cardstock, and I'm going to add those. And that will complete my card. I love how that turns out. What a cute little scene looking out the window on Halloween night. I love that. Okay, so if you wanted to finish the inside, you can just put a white piece of cardstock on the inside so you can write your message, or you can write your message with a white gel pen. So that completes that card. So for this image, I am actually going to be just coloring this banner up, and I'm gonna fussy cut it out. I'm not gonna use any of these other images that are on here, and I'm going to color it in purple. And I'm gonna bring in my Copic markers just because I have more variety of a range of colors in the Copic. So I'm gonna be using my V12, V15, and V17. So I'm gonna start with the darkest color, and that's gonna be in the corners. And then I'm gonna come in with my V15. That's my mid-tone, and I'm just going to extend that color out a little bit. And then I'm going to come in with the lightest color, which is the V12, and just finish that off. I think I'm going to bring this dark color a little bit further down. I just think it will look better if it's over the entire spiderweb portion. I'm going to bring in my YR07, and I'm going to fill this little piece in here, as well as these little pins. Now I'm going to take my scissors, I'm going to cut this out. All right, so I've already cut it out, but I don't like the white edges showing, so I'm just going to come in here with my black marker, and I am just going to color up these edges so that there's no white showing on the ends of this. I cut a piece of the polka dot kiwi paper from the paper pad that came with this kit out of a stitched rectangle die, and I am going to adhere some glue and put this on the top of this pattern paper. So I'm going to bring in these two spiders, and just like it shows in the banner, in this banner, and they have them coming down from a string. I'm gonna do the same thing, but just with these cardstock pieces. So I'm just gonna put them where I think I want them to go. And then I'm gonna use my ruler as a guide to draw some lines. I'm adding some googly eyes to my spiders. All right, so I know some of this wasn't recording. So what I did is I just went back over with that one marker that I used. I went over it with a Sharpie just because it was a little bit darker. And then I just went over here and added my line, drew my line, and then added my spider. And then obviously you saw me do the googly eyes. So I'm gonna go ahead and add this to an A2 size card base in the grape color. So I don't have any orange epoxy dots, so I'm going to come in with my Nuvo drops, and this is ripened pumpkin. It's a perfect color. So first I am going to add a large drop of this on the sides here where these, it looks like that they're pinned, the banner is pinned. So that will dry clear. I think that'll be really, that'll add some nice dimension. And then I'm just gonna add a few more, just smaller ones, just for some accents. And that will complete this card. For this next card, I'm gonna be using the jar dies, and I thought it would be really cute to have the candy corn inside the jar. So I have this scrap piece, and I'm going to die cut it rather than wasting a whole nother sheet. I figured I'd use the scraps. And this color will look nicely against the candy corn. So I'm gonna die cut the shadow layer out of the kiwi polka dot. And then I'm gonna take the layering die cut that out of some white cardstock. That's gonna go on top, but I'm gonna cut this middle part out. So, and on this mason jar, there are some score lines around this inside of the jar. So I'm just gonna come in with my craft knife and I'm gonna cut along those score lines. Okay, so when that comes out, it's gonna look like this. My craft knife was really for the birds, but I had done one previously that is much cleaner. I need to go get a new craft knife because that is just terrible. But anyway, I did one previously and it looks much better. So that is the one I'm going to be using. I'm gonna come in with some cloud ink and just ink up the edges just a little bit, just so there's a little bit of a shadow and it's not solid white. Next, I'm going to take a piece of cloud cardstock, and I'm going to be using the mason jar top for the stamp, and I'm just inking that up with some Forever Black ink. I'll go ahead and stamp that down, and then I'm going to take this die and I'm going to die cut that out. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere these pieces together. So I'm going to adhere the mason jar to the pattern paper. Now I did a while back, I did a mason jar similar to this with some gumdrops inside, and I made it a shaker card. I'm not making this a shaker card today, but you can totally do this method by cutting out the middle part and making it a shaker card. And I can link to that video below if you're interested. Since I'm going to be using the stickers, I'm not going to be using it as a shaker card, but you can put your stuff in here, put your acetate on it. You'd have to pile up a couple of these layers and then put your acetate on it and then put another layer on top, and then this could be a nice little shaker. Isn't that cute? Love that. So you can see that they are the puffy stickers, so it is giving some dimension. So, but if you wanted to, as I said, you can go ahead and layer this up some more and then put some acetate over it if you wanted to do that, but I'm gonna leave it alone. I'm happy with how it looks. Next, I took a scalloped tag die and I just die cutted that out of the powdered sugar cardstock. Stamp that for you on there. So this is the tags to stamp, and that's the scalloped tag die. Next, I have a piece of the kiwi cardstock, and this measures A2 in size. And then I have a piece of this pattern paper with a scalloped rectangle die. So I die cut that out of the largest scalloped rectangle. And then I have this pattern paper, which I die cut out of another, not scalloped, stitched rectangle. We're gonna put all of that on my card, just like that. So I'm gonna start out with a piece of white ribbon, and I'm going to tie this around the bottom. So because this twine is so thick, it's not going to lay flat if I just put glue on there. So I'm going to come in with some foam, and I'm adding some foam to this. Okay, and then I'm just gonna put a few candy corn outside of this jar. And that completes this card. As you can see the dimension on there with the foam. I think that turned out super cute. For this next card, I have a stitched rectangle die that I die cut out of just some white cardstock. And let me see what size this is. This is about 3 5/8 by 4 7/8. So if you don't have a stitched rectangle die or any type of die, you can just die cut or cut a piece of cardstock to that size. And I'm just gonna make my own pattern paper. So I have the little spider stamp, I have some sentiments that I'm going to be stamping out, and I have various inks. So I'm going to be using kiwi, I have the tangerine and the grape ink. I think those are great Halloween colors. I think I'll start, actually I think I'm going to start with some of the bigger stamps. So let's start with some of the sentiments. So here's a boo to you, and I'll go ahead and just stamp this out in some of the kiwi ink. And some of them are going to be stamped off of the page or off of the paper. So you can see that's why I have that cardstock there. So there is how you create some pattern paper with your stamps. So I'm going to use these 3 sticker pieces, and I'm going to come in with my glitter pen again and just add some glitter to these pumpkins. And I'm going to go ahead and add some glitter over top of the trick or treat. And I want you to notice that this sentiment is actually the same exact size as this cardstock. That was just a happy coincidence. I can put these inside here. So I left a little bit of space there. So I'm going to go ahead and use this twine that was from my stash, and I'm just going to wrap the twine around the bottom of the sentiment. So I think I'm just going to take this bow out and just tie it in a knot, because that bow is bothering me. It's actually going over top of the sentiment, which I do not like. So we are just going to redo this and tie this in a knot. Okay, next I am going to go ahead and start layering up my card. I have a tangerine card base that's an A2 in size. I did die cut this piece of pattern paper from the paper pad, and this is measured 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. So next I'm just going to add this little button embellishment right over top of that knot. And I did put some hot glue on there, so that will stick really well. And that completes this card. For this next card, I have a tangerine card base in an A2 size. I also have a piece of the licorice cardstock that measures 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. I have a piece of this striped paper, 4 by 5 1/4, and then I have another piece of the black licorice cardstock, which measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And I also had have this ghost die, and I die cut 6 ghosts out of the powdered sugar cardstock. So I'm going to start with this top layering piece, and I'm going to kind of make a background with these ghosts. So I'm just going to position them where I think I want them to go. And then once I have them where I think I want them, I'm going to go ahead and lift them up and put some glue on them and attach them to my cardstock layer. Next, I'm going to flip this panel over, and I am just going to snip off the excess cardstock. Isn't that a cute ghost background? I love it. Make your own pattern paper with your die cuts. Next, I'm just going to take a piece of powdered sugar, my scraps, and I'm going to stamp out the sentiment Ghostly Greetings with some black ink. And then I'm just going to trim around it. Then I'm going to back that up on some tangerine cardstock, so I'm just going to trim around to create a border on there. Next, I'm going to take this ribbon and I'm going to put it along the bottom edge of the ghost paper, and I'm going to tie this in a knot. Okay, and then my sentiment is going to go right flush with the ghost paper. And then I'm just going to make sure that this knot in the ribbon is exactly center underneath that sentiment. So next I'm just going to put a little bit of hot glue underneath this knot just to keep this in place. And that completes that card. For this card, I am making a flip it card, and I die cut my card base out of the circle flip it from the Stamps of Life. And I did that out of the black licorice cardstock. And I'm going to set that aside, and then I die cut the layering pieces out of the Bristol Smooth cardstock because I'm going to be doing some ink blending. I also took the circle die that came in that set and die cut 2 circles, and I'm going to set those aside as well, and those are just in the white cardstock. So I'm going to go ahead and tape these panels down to my glass mat, and making sure that you have them in the right direction. Notice that this large panel has a little cutout for the circle, so that's going to face the top left. And this is going to matter because of the way that I'm going to be ink blending these cardstock layers. So if you had that circle towards the bottom, it's not going to look the same because when you lay this on your panel, this part has to go facing the top left. I'm going to be bringing in my Raspberry Grape Midnight and also my licorice inks to do some ink blending. So I'm going to start with the raspberry at the bottom. Next, I'm going to come in with my stencil, and I'm just going to apply some of this pixie spray to the back of the stencil. And I just am going to apply these stars to the top portion of these panels. So I'm just covering the top. I'm going to apply this to the top. And I don't know if that's going to stay because I ink blended that. Let me go ahead and tape this down. Okay, so what I'm going to be using is, I have this Glitter Kiss. It says, add a sparkling touch of glitter and highlights to your crafting projects. Anyway, this is really neat. It's very similar to that modeling paste that I used in that it's going to add dimension. But if you look, you can see that there's a lot of glitter in there as well, which is the look that I wanted to go for. And I just want to show you, this top actually has a sponge where you can dip it in and you can sponge it, but I'm not going to use that sponge. I am going to be using my stencil pal. So I'm just going to scoop some of this out and I'm going to put it there on my stencil pal. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to add this to my project. And you really need to make sure that you're getting in these holes of the stencil when you're using this. And just kind of scrape up just to make sure that you've, first of all, so you're not wasting it, but also just to make sure you got in those holes. And notice that I'm going up and away from the bottom because I don't want to spread that glitter down towards the bottom. All right, and then just scrape up as much as you can, and because you can save it. And then you can just kind of put it back in that container. And this is actually going to dry with some nice dimension, and it's going to have some glitter to it. So let's go ahead and pull this back. I don't know if you can see how much you see it sparkling, but it is there and it looks really, really pretty, and there is some dimension there. So I'm gonna let that dry for a minute and I'm gonna clean this up and then we'll continue with this card. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some paint to this because I think that does give it a some more nice texture and dimension. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of paint there, just like I did with the previous card, and then just mix that up with the water. And then I'll be able to flick that on the background. And then I'm just going to take my heat tool and just dry that. All right, so now we're going to start putting this card together. I did die cut a fence die out of the black cardstock. And I'm also going to take this tree from the Leaves for Fall die set and die cut that out of the black. I did put double-sided adhesive on the back of that cardstock. And I'm going to run this through my die cut machine. And then the fence is going to go right over top of it on both panels. All right, so we can take our Flip It card base, make sure you fold it at the score lines, and then we can go ahead and adhere these panels to the card base. Next, I'm going to take one of the circles and I die cut the Boo die out of the black cardstock with double-sided adhesive on the back. And I'm going to go ahead and adhere this down to my circle. This is the circle that's going to be on the front of my card. And it's also going to have this ghost. So I'm just going to position where I want everything here. And I love how this looks here. This circle, it actually represents the moon. So even though it's a Flip It card, you can create a scene, and then with the circle Flip It, this would actually look like the moon. So you don't have to put a moon somewhere else if you wanted to include a moon. So I think that turned out really cute. So I think I'm also going to include these pumpkins, but I don't like all of the white border showing around it. So I'm just gonna take my scissors and I'm going to cut some of this border away. So I'm going to cut as close to the pumpkin as I possibly can. And I'm going to do that for both of these pumpkins, and I'll be right back. So I'm going to go ahead and include these bats. I did trim off some of this extra white border because I didn't want so much white. And I'm just going to adhere these bats. For the inside circle, I'm just going to add a sentiment, ghostly greetings. So that completes this card. I love how it turned out. So just creating a fun little Halloween scene on a Flip It card. Isn't that cute? Next, I'm going to be making a little treat box. And this die set is called the Mermaid Box. And this is the die that actually makes the box. And I'm going to die cut that out of some tangerine cardstock. And when that comes out of the die cut machine, it has all of these score lines. So I'm just gonna fold at the score lines. And then I'm going to take my glue, and the part that's the scallop, that's going to be the top of the box. So I'm going to take the flat part of the box and these little tabs, and I'm going to put some glue on the outside edges. And that larger flap is just going to fold up, and just press that down. And I'm going to do the same thing with this other flap. So just bring that up, press that down, and then go to the other side, and you're going to do the same thing with those two flaps. Then I'm going to take this flap that's in front of the box by the scallop, and I'm going to fold that underneath. That's going to be glued to the outside scallop piece. Same thing with the other side. And then when the box closes, it closes just like that. So you have all your scallops around the outside. Now this die set comes with several layering dies, which I'm not going to use all of them. It has a bunch of hearts, but since this is Halloween, obviously you don't want to use that. It also has these background dies, which I don't think I'm going to use either. But it does have this larger rectangle, which you can put on the front of your box, and it also has this die, which you can decorate on this front small piece on that flap. So I think I'm going to use those pieces. It also has this die that you can decorate the back. So I think we'll go ahead and use those pieces, and we'll die cut some pattern paper out of that. So I'm going to take the striped paper and do my large rectangle. I went ahead and did the same paper for the other dies. I didn't want to mix up too much paper. So that's going to go there on top. Then I have the front piece, and then I have the back piece, just like. So I'm going to go ahead and adhere these smaller pieces, but I'm going to wait on the top because I want to put a stamp on there. Now it doesn't have any pieces for the sides, but I think I'm wanting to decorate those sides. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this die again and die cut the same pattern paper. So I have that die, and all I'm going to do is fold this in half, and I'm going to cut, and then I'm going to glue this down. All right, so now for the top, I'm not going to adhere that yet. I know I'm going to be using the pumpkin and maybe a few of these candy corn, and I want to put a sentiment on there. I'm not crazy about the sentiments that came with the stamp set because it's more, I think, for ghosts. Have a beautiful Halloween, ghostly greetings, boo to you, don't be scared. So I am going into my stash, and I am going to get another stamp set. This is the Halloween to Build set, and there is a Happy Halloween on here. And I think I'm going to use this one and just stamp that on there. And I'm just going to ink that up with some black ink. Next, I just took a piece of twine and I tied it in a bow. I'm going to put some glue there on the back and put it there on my pumpkin. I just think that is so adorable. So that could be a little treat box for a kid on Halloween. And you can put some candies in there. I will probably put some candy corn in there and have to make 2 more for my 3 kids. That's so cute. My kids love candy corn, so that would be a perfect little treat box to put some candy corn in there. I think that turned out super cute. So here are the 9 cards and 1 treat box that I made with the Halloween kit from the Stamps of Life. Let me know which your favorite was, and be sure to subscribe for more card making inspiration. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.